welcome back to another edition of Studio Stories Live. And now we're actually going to go to our events panel, hosted and led by my mom, Benita Falk. We have some great guests. I'm going to let her introduce everybody, but I wanted to say thanks for joining and tuning in and looking forward to a great conversation. So this will be about events, activations, technology within that world, and some good.
I'm having a little bit of issues with that, and I thought today we could talk about some of the things that have changed in the events world since COVID, things that have gone. But before we do that, I do want to start out. I'd like for each one of you to introduce yourself, and we'll start with Paulette. Tell us a little bit about you and how you got into the industry.
A little bit,
Oh, we love Paulette.
Hi, everybody. I'm Paulette Hopkins. I've been in the industry since 1984 when I moved to Atlanta. I worked for a gentleman for 6 years, and then he was kind enough when he retired to turn the company over to me. And we built a very terrific company, which I had for 24 years, and then we left each other. My team wanted to move on to something else, and I went out on my own. And I've just had a wonderful career traveling all over and working with Fortune 100 and 500 companies. So I've been very fortunate, and I get to meet all these wonderful people through the career. And I've loved living in Atlanta since 1984, but I have not been able to get a Southern accent, so maybe Benita will be able to help.
Paulette is an industry icon here in Atlanta. We love her, and she's been around for 100 years, but she is so wonderful to share her knowledge and her experience with us. I'm so excited to have her on the panel today. And then we have Russell Lopinto, my guru in the AV world, my go-to, my Russ, how do I plug this thing in, which goes back to the storied NCR that I'll tell you later how I found out to do that.
So I'm Russell Lopinto. I'm with Orchestrated Audiovisual. I do light, sound, and video for corporations, different companies, live events, public events, as well as mostly corporate events. And I've been doing this since, I think, '86. So I came in a couple of years after you. Went to broadcast journalism degree from the University of South Carolina. Came to Atlanta, worked for Turner for a couple of years with that degree, and then got into live events. And never looked back. I've been doing it 40 some odd years in Atlanta, which is nice because Atlanta, you can get everywhere from Atlanta. So a lot of business in town here with the Coca-Colas, thanks to my friends like Nick, who we just did a big event for Coca-Cola actually recently, where he got to bring me in, and then companies like Manhattan Associates about 2 months ago, where I needed Nick, and I brought him in. So it's a nice, what's great about this business is that you get to work with people and bring people in. Again, it's relationships, it's relationship based,
Just like
right?
we're doing today.
Correct.
We're all getting together and talking things through.
Exactly.
And Russ has been a godsend for me. When I first started GP, Georgia Pacific, all those years ago.
Yeah, probably since '90, right? Maybe
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
So Georgia Pacific, we
Sorry,
worked
it's the
with.
AV guy in me.
Thank
Right.
you, appreciate it.
Georgia Pacific, NCR, we got to
Yeah.
work. So we've
Yeah.
been working together for, God, as long as I've been in
A
the
long
business,
time.
right?
Yeah, we were
Since
babies.
I think you used to bring a DJ in the crib.
Yeah.
Because we sat on the
No
board
doubt.
together, right?
And then our newest friend here, my newest friend,
I'm
Nick
the newest
Snider.
friend.
DJ's been telling me for years to get with Nick, that he's wonderful. And a couple of years ago, I think we finally made
We
that
finally
connection.
did.
And tell us all about you and what all you're doing. And
Yeah, so I own Atlanta Media Services. We started 2009. And to piggyback off of what Russ said, the event industry, and all of us collectively, but even if we're both kind of in the same silo, if you will, the thing I like about it the most is that you can kind of be competitors and friends. Because no matter what, you're going to have a show, an RFP that you win, and you're going to rent from all of your friends in the industry. So it's kind of a cool place to be able to, to be friends with everybody that you all work together. And there's Atlanta, where we are now, is not. I mean, it's a very big city, so there's a lot of pie for everybody to eat, and it's just it's a neat field to be in. So we started 2009. I come from a broadcast side, TV news, and that whole TV news background, journalism, is what I got my degree in from Radford University up in Virginia. Kind of moved into the streaming world, the streaming of internet video, and so before COVID, we were known throughout the U.S. and kind of I had people going all over the world doing streaming video for corporate America. So we're kind of both in the same industry there. And then when COVID hit, we had to pivot well, I hate that word at this point, but pivot was something that we did. It was the word of the year for sure. But because we were the streaming company in Atlanta and worked with a lot of the Fortune 100 companies, we became, we had to move into like the event side of the platforms and things like that. And during that time, I've created a piece of software called Hybridly. And that is where we stand now. And I think we're going to talk a lot more about it. But yeah, it's
very cool.
It is very cool. It's very simple, very simple and
which
cool.
is why I love it.
Yeah, not cheap. Cheap and simple don't really go together, but thought through, and it's complicated to make it simple is kind of our tagline.
As a non-technically savvy person, registration is frustrating for me, and we have some really good companies out there, but Nick's been really good about customizing things, and we've talked through, he's been a godsend for me in that area since I've gone out independent as well. But the world has changed a lot, guys, I know, and you're probably the youngest one on this stage, but since COVID, what do you think are some of the biggest changes that you've seen come about, Paulette? Are you still seeing things in planning, or are we just
The biggest
over
thing
it?
I've seen is on the supplier side,
Yeah.
the hotels and the venues. Dealing with them nowadays is just so difficult. And I guess they're just trying to make up for lost time, but aren't we all during COVID, right? And it seems that, I've said this before, and Benita and I were talking, I don't know if I could really be the successful planner and have the company that I had with 10 employees in today's world, the way the hotels really nickel and dime me to death. It's just so different. And we were talking earlier that there's no one really in the hotel business that I've worked with, except for older people like us or whatever, but that can make their own decisions. So you're constantly, it's just such a time-consuming project now. It used to be that you'd work with a hotel, you get your menus, you get your AB, you talk about housing, all those kind of things, and now it takes 3 times as long. And you would think with all the technology, it would go faster. But I think it's just a difference in how it's managed. And that's kind of what I've been feeling.
It's not as much fun as it used to be, it doesn't
fun
seem
at
like.
all.
You know, it's back in the day, we enjoyed it, and a handshake did things. These days, contracts are tricky,
Yep.
they're scary,
You always
you've got to
have to
watch
look at
those
everything.
words. Russ, you want to say something? I can
So
see it.
COVID, if we use COVID as a kind of a, what's happened
A
since
marker.
COVID? Well, first of all, COVID was a mess for our industry. It hurt us as much as any industry, for sure. And using that as a starting point, which is interesting because Nick was able to help me with a program that we had for an industry site program where they decided to do a kind of call in a bunch of different chapters, and Nick actually streamed those chapters in. This was 3 months before the world turned off. And literally, at that point, that's all you had. Literally, live events went south. They didn't exist. And it went to a broadcast world.
And the funny part is, I was just a little fish, right? No one thought of anybody backstage doing the streaming and all of that. And then all of a sudden, front and center, there we are.
I was
So,
doing him
yeah.
a favor because it's like
Yeah.
nobody streamed, right?
Yeah.
So we did this event. I said, here, come meet these people and stream. And everybody's like, okay, that's fine. That's kind of cool. And then 3 months later, that's all anybody could do. I mean, you went from being, like, say, small fish to being the only game in town. And honestly, I hated it. I mean, because we're live events people, right? I mean, we want to be in front of people. That's where it happens. And it became a broadcast world. And again, if you're a broadcaster, that's fine. I got a broadcast journalism degree, but it didn't bring me joy. So I suffered through, like a lot of people, but it was all we could do because live events went away. So if you didn't broadcast, then you just basically sat on your thumbs. And so we did that for a couple of years, and it's come out the other end. And so we're back to live events, hybrid events. So in cases like what we just did for Manhattan Associates, it was a live event, but they needed to stream it out. So now you get the best of both worlds. You got the broadcast going on, and you got the live events. but don't ever let live events go away as far as I'm concerned. Because that's when I leave. I'm
Amen.
done if it happens again.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, but then inside of all of that, we were the streaming people, so we had a lot of business for a short amount of time until everyone else learned how to do our jobs. No one wanted to touch our jobs with a 10-foot pole because they didn't understand it, and when they were forced to understand it, then that changed my business model quite a bit, and that's where Hybridly came from. We had an event portal, if you will, prior to COVID, and all of the things that happened with that. But there just wasn't the investment in that. The clients didn't want to invest in it. It was almost as if you weren't at the event itself, right? Because that was the primary focus, the primary target of anybody that had anything to do with events. And then the people online, it was like, man, but there's thousands of them, right? There's more people online than there are in this room, but still it was looked at as that was the value add, was being in person and the connectivity you get with, meeting people. When that flipped, everyone did end up knowing what we were doing behind the scenes, and so that changed to Hybridly. And now that I could see, in 2020, you could see that these things were going to become virtual, and events would come back. So merging them together, using that term hybrid that was a catchphrase at that time, and then putting all that together is how we moved throughout COVID on our side. On being the broadcast people, then when everyone else is a broadcast person and you're not the only ones in town.
Well, I think we need the human connection, and I, for one, am so glad that COVID is damn behind us. It's over. We can get on with our industry. I know. Isn't
Over
that
5 years
scary?
ago. Yeah.
5 years. And it has changed so much. But the youth that's coming up today does not remember the days when we had catering books that you opened up and you wrote in there the space that you were holding at the hotel. And then somebody else, no, that's my space, and they'd erase it. And there was no way to track it back in the day. Do you remember that, Paulette? So technology has come a long way, and I'm so thankful for a lot of it, and certainly trying to learn it. DJ has been a godsend for me. When we first started doing the hybrid events or the virtual events, I was lost. You know me, Miss Non-Technology. I'm like, DJ, what do I do? And he's like, you come to Encyclopedia, and I'm going to set you up. We're going to do it. And I learned to do that from here, and I'm like, this sucks. I don't like these hybrid events or virtual. So we're back to live. We've talked about some of the biggest changes and stuff. Tell me some of the things y'all think happen behind the scenes that people don't realize we do in the events world. Everybody walks in, and it's like, oh, this is great, beautiful setup. They don't realize what it took the day before to come rolling in all the carts and unloading. Tell us some of the things y'all do, you two particularly.
Well, from my end of things, part of the education process is just letting people know that it doesn't just, it's like here, it's a studio. It's here, it'll be here tomorrow. It doesn't get torn down and get reset up. In my world, and probably a lot in your world, you take the house and you move it to a city, and then you build the house, and your crew lives in that house for 5 days. They tear that house down, they move it to another city, and literally it is a 2 and 3 day process. And if you don't take that into consideration, the time that it takes to do it, people it takes to do it, you're going to shortchange whatever your event is, right? So, I mean, it literally is about getting everything set up well ahead of time, having the right people. And again, we were talking about what's the difference between now and 10 years ago, 5 years ago, COVID, pre-COVID. Labor rates right now. People wonder why things are more expensive, and basically people make more money. And so your A1, your audio guy, your lead video guy, your lead.
And that's one thing Paulette and I were talking about a little bit earlier. To budget these days, we don't even know how to budget hardly anymore because of all the hidden costs. There's a $5 fee if you are in Georgia. There's an extra $5 on your hotel fee. But in the AV world, now they want to send. Build that up. How do you know the 20% or the extra $5 or the?
What you want is a partner.
Good partner.
Okay, sales pitch is the hotels. To me, the in-house audiovisual company is the evil empire. Now, you struggle with the hotel.